Hey, Kurt.
Hey,
It's so good to have you.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, we've been talking about starting podcasts. You're going to have a podcast. I'm going to have a podcast.
Podcast galore.
All the podcasts.
Everyone's going to have a podcast.
You did a podcast. You were on a podcast.
I was a guest on one.
Yeah, and that went really well.
I've been told. I haven't listened to it. I'm nervous to hear myself, so.
Oh, you still haven't?
I'm sure I'll be very critical.
Yeah.
But I've gotten good feedback. It's nice.
But everybody has one.
Everybody needs one.
Yeah.
We all need a voice.
The point of this gathering today, this came from a voice text I sent you. Like, how are we going to introduce each other?
You start. It's your podcast. You're the hostess. You're the hostess with the mostest.
Okay.
What's the name of your? Let me ask you. What's the name of your podcast? What's the name?
So welcome to Wild Evolution, my YouTube channel. I'm Laura Wild, and this is my good friend Kurt Derby, and we were having a texting conversation, and I'm texting back and forth, and he's just like, I'm just going to send a voice memo. He's good at that, and then he can talk for 10 minutes uninterrupted. So we were exchanging voice memos, and then I started rambling on about focus, ironically enough. I had a conversation with my daughter the night before. Every once in a while, I used to say this to my mother, and every once in a while my kids will say something like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me this? And, my response is like, I tried to, or I wanted to, but you didn't want to hear it, or, we just life just passes by, and you don't have those conversations. I might have thought of saying something and then forgot. And so that idea of really focusing on slowing down and living life in a more focused way, and getting to some of these conversations that we don't typically have, and it's just fascinating to me how a whole lifetime can go by. 30 years can go by, and you're like, oh, I never got around to telling my child that, or this person that, you hear people say, oh, tell your loved ones, tell people you love them because they might not be here forever. But also, there's just so many conversations that we don't have. And I guess that was my question to you, was how do we do that? There's so many things I want to do, and I keep saying I want to do them, and then I never do them. So it's conversations, it's starting a podcast. I've been talking about having a YouTube channel for 10 or 12 years. And I've actually tried several times. I've filmed different videos. I've filmed 2 different podcast style videos with a friend on dating and relationships for old people. And we never edited them and didn't post them anywhere. So
bring them out. Get to editing.
Yeah.
There's some gold in there, I'm sure.
I'm sure there's some amusing things in there. So that was my question. I think I was asking you what is this, what is focus? How do we do more of it? How could it change our lives? And I think you said you took notes and you were going to respond to me, and then you're like, well, we could just record it. So that's what we're doing here today.
And of course, I left my notes at home. No, I think we can. Those are great questions, and applicable to life and success and all that. So I guess to me, focus is just really drilling down on something, right? So it's kind of like the camera, the old style cameras. You turn the, whatever you call it, the lens, I guess, and you focus on something. But as far as focusing for your kids, I speaking from experience, I have a son, he's 15, almost 16. My then wife and I, talking about backstory, this will be quick. Neither one of us wanted kids when we got married.
Oh.
And we did the proper thing pre-marriage by talking about all this stuff, right? Finances, careers, a lot of the deal breakers and all that. So we covered a lot of stuff. We're both very analytical in that way. And we talked about kids, and we both said, we don't want kids, neither one of us. 100%. But if one of us wants a child, the other's going to acquiesce.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Because
that's interesting.
even at that time, I thought it was a big hassle to have a child. I thought it was going to be very expensive. Neither of which is really true. I mean, and there's a little bit of both of those, but not to the extent that I thought as someone in my younger 30s, like, oh, it's a big hassle. Anyway, but probably the biggest thing I liked, even when we said we didn't want to have kids, was to make a child a project and to take this little malleable human being and teach them certain things, and they're either going to catch it or not. I mean, we have choice and free will, but I thought, wouldn't that be kind of fun? Because and maybe because I didn't get a lot of that growing up. I was a typical Gen Xer. I went to school, mom went to work, parents were divorced. I came home, I was by myself for 4 hours, I had to entertain myself, and it was fine, but I didn't get a lot of attention or instruction along the way.
For sure.
Again, not bitter about it. I like how I turned out, but having the opportunity then for my son. Anyway, so this is the focus part. And to answer your question about, well, why, 30 years have gone by, why didn't we talk about certain things, me and my kid or kids? And for me, I think it's been kind of easy because I've always approached it kind of more of an educational standpoint. Like, I love my son, but maybe the thing that kind of keeps me going as a parent is to make sure I tell him certain things at certain times. And I think I have. I mean, I'm sure I've forgotten a few, or he could benefit from things that I didn't mention. But I think for the most part, for example, I taught him about investing, I taught him about work ethic, I talk about lying, and I always approached it like, you can do whatever you want. Just know there's going to be consequences after. There are either going to be consequences that help you and help others, or there's going to be consequences that you're not going to like. So I don't think I ever said, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. I think I was pretty good at teaching how I think the world works and how relationships work and all that. So getting back to how do we focus on telling our kids the right thing, I think it's more of a mindset up front. Is just, I want to teach them everything I can about adulthood so that by the time they're 18, hopefully they're set.
So how did you do it though? Did you make a list? Did you just, when thoughts came up in the moment, you're like, oh, I'm going to tell him this later?
That.
Or tell him right now?
That.
And then, because something my kids have said to me is, they'll say, why didn't you tell me this? And I say, I did tell you that. Oh, well, why didn't you remind me? Like, I don't remember you telling me that. How old was I? If they're 4 and you're telling them, and then you tell them again at 10 or whatever, and they don't remember.
Do you have an example?
Well, like about sex, for instance, because that's such a big one.
Sure.
Like safety. What to do if somebody is touching you in an inappropriate way or saying something inappropriate. What to do if you're in danger, and it's like, or even like, don't get pregnant, don't get diseases, like these conversations, but like they have to happen. My daughter and I were talking about it, like with my younger kids, like we need to be talking about it once a month. Like once isn't good enough, once a year isn't really good enough, like because they it just goes in and out, because they can't really relate to it unless they're having an experience right then, and they really have nothing to tie it to. And so, like every time I have 6 kids, and every time I was pregnant, I would talk about where babies came from. We would sit down and the kids are asking questions, and we were just very open about it and talk about it. And then I think everybody knows. Everyone knows what's happening. Everyone's up to speed here. And then I get pregnant again a few years later, and we're starting over. Nobody remembers because they don't care. They just didn't care.
Good point. That's a good point. And it's not applicable when you're 8 years old to know where babies came from.
Yeah,
like,
and
who
so
cares?
and then you go, okay, I better talk to my kids about sex. Well, at what age? And then and then they get to a certain age, and they don't want to hear what you have to say. about certain things. And then you're like, oh wait, I missed that opportunity. Or now it would be applicable to them, but they don't really want to sit down and have these kinds of conversations with me. They think they have it all figured out. Oh, I know about that. I went to here and I got informed and I heard all this on TikTok, and I talked to my doctor, or I talked to my therapist, and it's like, okay, well, I guess you have that covered. And then years later,
let's hope they do.
Then years later, it's like, why didn't you tell me? I don't know.
You had it covered from TikTok. That's all.
I don't know. But I don't remember. It's like, who knows how we got here?
I'm going to side with you on this, probably because I'm a parent, but maybe you told them more than once and they forgot, or you forgot. I mean, we tell our kids millions of things.
Yeah.
Like, we can't keep a record of every little thing.
Yeah.
So maybe you did tell them more than once, and kids can push back sometimes, and you never told me, right? But who really knows?
Yeah. And that doesn't matter. They're not blaming me. I'm not blaming myself.
It doesn't really matter. You're right.
Yeah. It's just, I wonder.
Is there anything, okay, so kind of personal, just switch gears if we need to. So when they mention these things, well, you never told me, is it really a life-threatening, life-changing event that they think you screwed up on? Again, if you have an example. I mean, you mentioned sex. Is someone having unprotected sex and like they got in trouble or catch a disease?
Well, I wouldn't say.
Okay.
I wouldn't say, but well, let's say something big that it's probably okay to share is that my daughter bought a house. When she was 17, she decided she wanted to buy a house when she was 19. So she worked, she did her research, she figured out how to build a credit, she got the down payment. When she was 19, she bought a house. And she's 20,
That's a great goal.
She's 24 now, so that was 5 years ago. And yeah, it's been a great investment, a great learning opportunity. But now she's like, I didn't know anything when I bought this house. Like, somebody should have told me that I'd need to have the electricity transferred into my name, and I need, this and this. There's a whole list of stuff, and I'm just like, I thought you figured all that out. You figured out your credit rating, you figured out how to get a mortgage, you figured out, how to buy, you've shopped, you bought a house, and nobody was asking me my opinion, I didn't feel like it was my place to sit down. Now, do you understand all the responsibilities of this, right? So it's not like she wasn't blaming me at all, but I feel the same way. I guess I feel the same way as her. Why don't we in general, as a society and in our families, why don't we just talk more? Why don't we just ask more questions? I probably feel like, well, I don't want to, and I do a lot. I say way too much. That's the other side of this. I do say way too much, and I do ask too many questions. And so they'll just be like, yeah, I have this figured out. Oh, I don't want to offend you. Well, it looks like you have this figured out.
No offense from me to you, but maybe that's why they keep saying I got it figured out, because you do tell them too much.
Yeah, I do.
And it's overwhelming.
I do tell them way too much. That is true.
Maybe focus on the things that are really important that you really want them to know.
But it all seems important. So yeah,
Sure.
So on the one hand, I'm saying too much, and I offend people. Not just my kids, but everybody. Everybody, everywhere I go. And then on the other hand, I'm not saying enough.
Okay, so two thoughts, which is why I asked the question a minute ago about, has anything really life-threatening happened because you didn't tell them something, right? It sounds like no. I mean, certainly in the house situation.
Well, we have had life-threatening things, yes.
Okay.
I won't go into it, but
no, that's fine. Okay. So you did.
Yeah.
Okay. So should you have told them about that, whatever that is? Or did you, and they're coming back and saying you never told me? No,
nobody's saying that to me. So it's not that, but yeah. I mean, I guess for this specific issue, that we could have had a lot more conversations. Yeah.
But hindsight's always 20/20.
Exactly.
If you could go back and do it over, you know what to do.
Yeah,
life's not like that.
Like we just said, you can't warn everybody about everything.
Life is imperfect.
It's so imperfect.
World's an imperfect place. Yep. And people aren't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, and it's a great conversation. The best you can do really is just say, honey, I'm really sorry. Whether I told you years ago or not, now I wish I did, or you can always apologize to your kids. And I've been really good with that with my son, because I catch myself screwing up. Mm-hmm. And even when he was 4, I would tell him I was sorry I did something or didn't do something. And they internalize that, and they know you're coming from a place of love and trust. Mm-hmm. So I guess when that happens, just apologize and teach then. At that point, it's better late than never.
Well, I think this is the most important point, is what you've brought up, is that when they come to me in those moments, what they want is my love and understanding and compassion. They're not coming to me to make me feel bad.
To point fingers.
Yeah, no, they're not doing that at all. They just want someone to talk to. They want someone who cares about them and loves them and is willing to listen. And they're just exploring all the options. Like, when we have tragic things happen, we're always saying, well, what if this and what if that? And I just feel like that's just something that we all go through. And the most important thing is to have somebody that you can talk to about it, that cares about you, and dispassionately can sit with you and hear what you have to say, not like, oh, I tried, I did my best, right. And like,
now's not the time for instruction. No. It's time for a hug.
Yeah,
and an ear.
Or
listen.
Defending yourself.
Right.
And or even apologizing. Like, you mentioned apologizing, and I do apologize a lot, but I actually have had my kids say, like, I don't need an apology. Like, you apologizing is kind of like, sometimes it feels like a pity party, like, I'm so sorry. Or it's kind of like, oh, I've ruined you and there's no hope. I think sometimes it would come across that way, just for me.
Sure,
like, not that it does for everybody. It's just made me more aware of how I apologize and
or when
or
if
yeah, because those are all different variables. Every situation is going to call for something different.
And what I hear out of that whole thing is your kids are coming to you. Think of that, rather than, oh, I might have screwed up. How great is it that they're coming to talk to you?
Yeah.
Because not all kids do that. Not all parents have fostered that environment. Mm-hmm. That's really the number one thing, especially the older ones, your 24-year-old. If they're still coming to you looking for a shoulder to cry on or just an ear to listen, that's a great thing.
It is, and I'm so grateful. Like, I cherish that so much, my relationship with my kids, and at the same time, like, I want them to feel like they can talk to me about anything, but at the same time, sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
There's a few things that they're like, yeah, maybe I don't need to tell her that. But
well, that's all right. Everybody has secrets.
Yeah, and they don't tell me everything, but they do tell me a lot, surprisingly. So, and I didn't have that with my parents.
Neither did I. I think it was our generation. They just weren't like that.
No.
But now we are, and it seems to work.
But the funny thing is, though, at the time, I wanted it to be like that. At the time, I knew that wasn't right. I remember going to my room crying. Like, my mother and I had a fight, and I went to my room crying, and she just left me there. And I cried myself to sleep. And I remember laying in bed thinking, why doesn't she come in and say, oh, honey, it's going to be okay. I love you. And it would be so easy for her just to come in, and it would be okay. Mm-hmm. But she never did. And
that sticks with you for a long time.
Yeah.
When a 5-second interaction would have changed it, which is probably why we generation are like we are today. We parents are like we are today, because we didn't get that, right? So every generation is kind of like fixing the problems of the ones before.
Yeah, and I just feel like the more we can stop ourselves in the moment, like with people, and just like check in, like, how are you? How are you feeling about this? Like, something just happened. Like, right now, how are you feeling about this? And just checking in more often. Like I guess even with my daughter in her house, I could have said, like, how's it going? I don't want to, what's the word?
Smother you, hover over you, make your decisions.
I don't want to meddle. Yeah, I don't want to interfere. That was the word. I don't want to interfere, but I just want to make sure you're okay. Like, this, what you're doing, buying a house is like such a huge thing, and you're 19 and you don't have experience with this before. Like, do you need anything? maybe that's the way to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
It would be more.
Speaking for myself, I have this weird but helpful ability to remember when I was younger. So like, I don't remember all the details of when I was 15, but I remember the major things. So it's easy for me to relate to my son. And it's easy for me to get on his level and talk at that level, rather than, because I think a lot of parents talk down to their kids, mm-hmm. right? Like, I'm the expert, I know everything, I've been on this earth longer. Like, they have that attitude. Mm-hmm. And that's good for wisdom, but it's not necessarily good for teaching moments. The teaching moments, I think it's good if you can kind of relate to what they're going through. And that's exactly it, is, you know, and you can't go back in time, but while she was going through the home buying process, just say, hey, I know you got a lot of this covered. Let me just throw a couple things your way in case you haven't thought of them. See, you always give the power back to them, right?
Yeah.
They you know, because otherwise, oh yeah, I know everything. But you know, you're going to have electric bills, you're going to have your mortgage, you're going to have taxes, you're going to have insurance, you're going to have trash, mm-hmm. Plus your regular life, right? Your dry cleaning for work, your gas driving to it. But you know, just helping you budget, just letting you know you got all these things. Anyway, but you can't change that one. But yeah, like I guess going forward, just when they're in that moment, you can throw some things their way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just, offer with no attachment.
Right.
And I guess that's the painful part, is when people are giving you advice with this attachment, like you better take it. You're a problem. You have a problem.
You're not good enough. You're not smart enough.
Yeah, you can't figure this out. And then that's the attachment that's involved. And that's the painful part, I think. So, the other angle of this habit thing. So you did respond at one point. You sent me another text and said, with some advice.
Oh, on the focus part.
Yeah.
I remember that.
On the focus part. So.
Assuming we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. So here was your point, was that if you wanted to do it, you would do it. Right. That was your main point, right? Mm-hmm. Do you want to elaborate?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, no, I mean, not for you, but I mean, this is something that I think I'm pretty good at. Mm-hmm. For better or worse, I generally have an ability to break things down to the simplest things, because I think a lot of people just complicate it. So, well, why am I, and not picking on you, just using your own words. Well, I've been talking about a YouTube channel for 10 or 12 years. Why aren't I doing it? What's wrong with me? How come I can't get focused? How come I can't do this? Why can't I do that? Well, the simple answer is you just don't want to do it. You want to do it, but there's something in the way that you'd rather do, right? So you want to do it, but maybe you don't want to put in the work. And I'm not saying this is you, just this is right. Maybe you don't want to put in the work, or maybe you're afraid of failure. Or maybe you don't know how to put in the work. You don't know what kind of tech to buy. You don't know how to, I don't know how to put something on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And that's why I hired somebody to do it when I start my YouTube channel. Because I don't even want to mess with it. But I think if we look at ourselves, because we beat each other up, we beat ourselves up. It's like, not saying this is you again, but I'm such a failure. You know, 10 years of wasted. I'm useless. No, you're not. Mm-hmm. You just are simply choosing not to do it yet. That's it. Mm-hmm. And then look at that instead of looking at, all the things that are wrong with why I'm not doing this YouTube channel for 10 years. But just look at it and accept it. Just say, well, this is me. Mm-hmm. This is my authentic self. I don't want to do it badly enough to move forward. And then say, well, why am I not moving forward? Is it because I'm afraid? Is it because I don't have the tech? Okay. Do I need a partner to help?
Yeah.
Whatever, because there's something greater than your desire to do.
Okay, so
the YouTube channel.
So I like that, because you didn't say that in your voice text. So I was going to argue with you.
Oh, okay.
You didn't say.
You can argue with me anyway.
Yeah, I will. You didn't say. Okay, you basically said if you wanted it bad enough, you would do it. And I was gonna say back that there's lots of things I want to do. I really, really want to do. But yeah, there's things that get in the way. And it's not because I don't want to do it. It's because maybe I don't feel good. Or maybe, like you said, I don't have the skills. I don't have the equipment. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't have, all these different reasons. and it's just not time. Like, I'm just not ready. There's too many complicated things. But at the same time, I also agree that both of those things are true. That you don't want it bad enough to focus on it and figure out all the little details and all the things that are holding you back. And then when you do, you'll do it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's great. And this is one thing I love about coaching. This is why I love coaching so much, because it's having another person that you've given permission to give you feedback and keep you on track. You know, you come into a coaching situation like, this is my goal, this is what I want to do. And the coach has permission to, every week or every time you talk to them, to go like, this is what you said you wanted. Like, are you doing it? Well, I had a hard week, or I was sick. Like, there's always reasons. Yeah, all those things. And you also said that you wanted to do this thing, right? So that's what I love about that. Like, and I give people permission in my life. Like, if I'm doing anything that is contradictory to what I have said that I want, please tell me. I don't think I've said it exactly that way, but what I have said to people is like, I want all your feedback. Like, if you have anything to say to me, please tell me, because I will be mad when I find out later that you were thinking this and not telling me, and it was information that I needed. So don't hold back. Like, never hold back with me. Always tell me exactly what you think, because, and like, we're thinking things about people that don't matter. Like, this person looks this way, or this person's acting this way, and it's weird, or I don't like it, or it's not, it's not appropriate, or it's not whatever. And none of that matters. Like, of course, you're not going to go around telling people those things. But if someone has said to you, this is what I want, and then you see them doing things contrary to that, that might be a good time to say, hey, if you have permission, or if you're, if it's appropriate and you have the right kind of relationship with that person, to say, hey, I noticed this. I just, want to check in and make sure it's not something you want to look at. Mm-hmm. That's what I want people to say to me. Yeah. Like, Laura, you say this, but you're doing this.
Well, when you post this on YouTube, you'll get a lot of criticism.
A lot of feedback.
There's going to be a lot of people love it, and a lot of people are going to pick on you. And
yeah, like my kids.
That's the medium.
Like young kids, they'll tell you like, oh, you have boogers in your nose, or you look weird today, or they'll just tell you every weird thing, and you're just like, no, I didn't need to know that.
Yeah. But then you go look in the mirror right after.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to know. There's some things I don't want to know. So.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about, social media and all the feedback. And sometimes I find myself wanting to give feedback to people online, and then I'm like, they didn't ask me. They didn't ask me for this. But then at the same time, I do want to share, like, this is an open forum, and I want to share myself, and I want to be part of this conversation. So I'm not necessarily want to criticize, but like, oh, have you thought of this? And sometimes I do. Like, I don't typically leave comments on videos and stuff, but every once in a while I do. And then it'll be interesting, the people in the comments, not the creator, but sometimes the creator will respond, but it's people in the comments who are like, oh, I want to hear more about that.
Right.
So then I go, oh, okay, that's fun. So I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to test the waters with people in different scenarios, different relationships, different, at work, or in your romantic relationship, or just friends, or meeting people on the street, like to test it out and see, like, what are they open to? How much are they open and to what I might have to say or not? Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
It's whatever floats your boat. If you want to open it up and say, tell me what you think. Not criticizing, but the thing I'd be careful of, though, language is a very strange thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have thoughts in our head, but when we try to speak them, sometimes they don't match. Mm-hmm. So if someone's giving you advice or suggestions, it could be because they see something in you that they don't like, rather mm-hmm. than trying to just help you, right? Mm-hmm. I'll admit, I don't know if I'm brave enough like you are to open everything up to people. I figure if they have something to say to me, they'll say it.
But they don't.
Well, true. Well, you're right. And I don't know, I guess I figure, if someone's really mad, okay, I'll give an example. So,
Okay.
and I hope he's okay with this. My brother confides in me in a lot of things. And for better or worse, we see things differently on certain things. A lot of things we agree on, some things we're radically different. So the radically different things, when he's describing his frustrations, I'll just jump in and I'll be like, well, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. And talk about telling somebody 5 to 10 times. I can make a list of stuff I've told him over the years.
Or 100 times.
Or 100 times over. And then they again, do they want to change or do they just want to vent? Or, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, yeah, that was my question. It was like, how do you want to receive feedback, and also how do you like experiment?
Me personally,
giving people feedback.
I'm kind of linear. So if I'm getting what you're saying, and you're getting what I'm saying, so I don't feel a need to say, tell me what you think of me, or I don't know, or maybe don't want to hear it. I don't know, like. I just like as time goes on, like each experience for me, like that's the one that I'm in. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty much in the moment on a lot of stuff. So I figure if we're talking and we're getting along and we're connecting and we're both happy, things are great. Like I don't need to ask you, tell me what I'm doing wrong, because I figure you would be in the moment.
But it might, like, I guess if, I could tell you what's going wrong in this moment, like about you, but it might not be about you. It might just be about anything. Like if you see me, this is so funny. So I went on this little trip with my 24-year-old and I was getting ready and I couldn't find my socks. And she's like, oh, here, you can just borrow some of mine. She pulls out, these like cactus socks or something. And because she's always wearing these cute little socks. And I was like, that's not really the vibe I'm going for. And, I'm looking for my little, my black, I'm wearing all black shoes. I do that a lot. And so I'm looking for my black socks. And she's like, I don't remember the whole conversation, but it was just cute.
I think you told me about that.
Yeah.
It was the ankle socks, right?
Yeah. She
said, you don't wear the ankle socks anymore. We know what generation you belong to if you're wearing ankle socks.
Yeah, and or footy socks. Not even just ankle socks, but footy socks.
Those are the ones that go below the ankle?
Yeah, you don't see them. They're like no-show.
Okay.
No-show socks. And so, she said that, and I was like, no, I didn't know that. Like, I'm thinking they're the weird ones because they're wearing these weird socks.
Cactus
like, my
socks.
dad used to wear, these crew socks. Like, my goofy dad would wear those with his sandals and stuff. And now the kids are doing it. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. They're being so retro. But I'm not thinking they're looking at me going, you're the doofus. Like, you're the weird one with your weird socks. And so that was just so funny. I was like, because I had another pair of socks that were striped and they were taller. And I was like, I was wearing a dress. And I was like, so you want me to wear these purple striped socks with my dress? And she's like, yeah. I said, and it will look good. I'm going to go out in public with these socks on and you're not going to be embarrassed. She's like, nope, it's going to look great. I'm like, okay. So I did it. I just wore my tall socks. And then I went home and I bought some new tall socks. I'm like, I'm wearing tall socks now.
Now you're cool again.
So, and then I said it to her at the time. I was like, why didn't you tell me? How long has this been going on?
Well, I figured you liked the ankle socks, so I wasn't going to tell you.
Like
that's why people don't tell you.
How many years have you been looking at my socks going, when is she going to get the clue that we don't wear socks, this new generation?
And I think
it's not cool.
There's tipping points. Like if you wore your hair 80s style, like all teased out, your daughter'd probably say something, right?
I don't think so.
Well, maybe, okay.
Like my kids are
But my point is like the ankle socks is probably not that big a deal. Right?
No, it's not a big deal. That's why I bring it up. 'Cause it's not.
That's why they don't bring it up.
Well.
That's why they don't tell you. And you're like, well, why don't you tell me?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't really matter, Mom. They're just stupid socks. Let's just go have fun.
It doesn't matter. And here's the thing.
But it matters to you, but they don't know what matters to you.
Well, it doesn't. Like, I'm joking. But,
okay.
But And somebody, a friend of mine, I told this story, and he's like, well, who cares? Why, like, just wear the socks you want to wear. And I said, I care because I don't want to wear these socks, actually. I've been wearing these stupid footy socks for so many years, and they always slip inside my shoe, and I always have to take my shoe off and pull my socks back up. It's so annoying. I actually hate them, and I was wearing them because I thought I had to.
Because you thought that was style.
Yeah. And
well, now you're like, set free. Your ankles are free.
Tan lines. you know, that thing too. But yeah, now I'm free.
Right, to wear tall socks.
And you guys let me suffer all these years for nothing. I'm mad.
That's a great question. I mean, you know, people, priorities, that's the thing, again, with language. Like, priorities are different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
Like
They didn't know I was suffering.
They didn't know you were suffering.
I should complain more.
I hate these ankle socks.
I hate these ankle socks.
And wouldn't that be a great thing? I mean, that is a first world problem across the board, right? You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about shelter.
I'm worried about my socks.
Safety. Yeah, like your socks are what's bugging you.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it is great.
That could be part of your YouTube channel. That's the wild, what is it, the wild experience?
The wild evolution.
The wild evolution. See, we're evolved.
Yeah.
We're evolved. We've hit this plateau
That's what we're
where
talking
socks
about.
are such a big deal.
Yeah.
What a great perspective.
And that we can really wear any socks. That's one thing I love about this.
We can
day.
wear any
really,
socks.
Like, it's really, nobody cares. Nobody actually cares.
Which is probably why your daughter never told you.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about my kids, because I wasn't this way with my mother, I was very critical. You know, she'd get dressed and I'd be like, is that what you're wearing? You know?
Well, maybe this is karma payback.
Well, yeah,
So,
so
like,
now my kids won't tell me anything.
Your kids are letting you look like an idiot,
Yes.
whereas you would criticize your mom a little too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I criticized a little too much. Because, yeah, in my mind, I think this is just the way my mind works. My mind is thinking, people want to know stuff. I want to know stuff. Other people must want to know. I would want to know if I came out looking weird. And no.
And on
Other people don't.
On that point, and again, I'm not singling you out or saying you're a certain way, but we are all different. Like, certain things are important to us that aren't important to a lot of other people. And that's what makes life interesting. So you're maybe frustrated because no one's telling you anything, but you are the outlier. Like, you're the one who wants to be told.
I'm frustrating everybody else because I'm saying too much.
Maybe. Well, maybe. But then, like, all these other people are like, what's her problem? Like, and I don't know. I don't know what's the ratio of like how many people do want to be told a lot of things or do care about a lot of things.
Yeah,
and other people are just flying by the seat of their pants. And you said something about 5-10 minutes ago that was interesting too. Some people are just too darn busy. Like, maybe your 24-year-old's worried about the electric bill. She's worried about the water bill. She's worried about her job because she's not at the level you are. You know, she's still kind of finding her way career-wise.
Well,
so her brain only has so much room for certain things, and your socks probably isn't up there.
And when we get together, it's usually a family thing. There's lots of people. We're like making dinner. Like, nobody's going to stop and go, let's check out your outfit. Let's have an outfit check, Mom. So yeah, that comes back to these conversations, and sometimes we just don't get around to having them. Like, we do notice things and we do want to say things, and then we just don't get around. Like, it's never the right time. And then 20 years later, you're like, oh, dang. I should have started that YouTube channel.
Well, now you are.
Yeah.
You know this, but your audience doesn't yet about me. One of my favorite phrases, and I learned this in entrepreneurship. Everybody talks about ready, aim, fire. Okay, I'm ready to do my thing. So now I got to aim. I got to figure out all the details. I got to make it perfect, and then I'm going to make my move. That's the wrong way to look at it. It's ready, fire, aim. You ready to do the YouTube channel? Do the YouTube channel. And then as you're doing the YouTube videos, you'll aim. You'll figure out better ways to record. You'll figure out better ways to discuss, or maybe not. Maybe you're as good as you're going to get, and you're great. So, but the aiming comes as you go along. So the only exception is, you want to buy a McDonald's franchise. Okay, you need to aim because those are like $2 million. Okay, you better aim before you fire on that one. But most businesses, for most people, they're shoestring budgets that you can do them out of your house. Just do them.
Yeah. You brought an image to mind of the difference between like a shotgun where you have one shot and you have to aim and fire and that's it. Or like a guided missile where you send it and then you go, let's make an adjustment this way, let's make an adjustment that way. And so I think we think of like, I have one shot and I got to get this right. But no, it's more like, starting YouTube channels or relationship or anything you're doing. Most of what we do is like a guided missile, like just start taking action, get going in the right direction.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but I've seen YouTubers and Instagrammers that have been doing this for 10 years and they are so hugely successful.
Oh, I know.
And it's like, well, if they had put it off 10 years, now they're 10 years behind.
Now they have millions of followers.
Right, now they have millions of followers and they're coasting. It's easy.
And they haven't even turned into something big. Like, they haven't turned into like the most professional, most amazing.
Right.
They're still
aiming.
They still have a crappy YouTube channel.
Sure,
but they have 2 million followers.
Right.
And they're happy.
Right.
And their followers are happy. I see that all the time. So
it's a good thing you
like,
started.
Whatever. So yeah, I mean, I don't know why I mean, my main reason is just because I didn't feel good. I've had health problems all these years, and my energy was so limited. My time was, and my resources and everything were so limited that I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it.
There's your reason.
And I just couldn't. And I don't, like, there's no part of me that looks back and says like, well, I should have. And I don't have any regrets.
Good.
I did it only what I could do.
You look back and say, I couldn't have.
Yeah.
Now I can, so I am.
Yeah.
Boom.
But I am curious. I mean, I am sort of curious that if I'd had, I don't know. Yeah, every time I come up with an if, it's like, nope, you didn't have that. But nope, you didn't have that. And no, you couldn't have done that.
It's good to go through that process. You reinforce your decision you're making today, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've definitely, it definitely is time. I'm definitely learning to find my voice. And I do have a lot to say. And I do wish I had started earlier.
I wish I did a lot of things.
Because I wish I had a record of all of it. Because like my life was so painful. That was part of it too. Like I'm not in a place where I feel like I have anything to share. But I wish I had shared that. I wish I did write a few blog posts that I never published. And I cherish those. In fact, did I tell you that story? That I had a blog. Well, I had a long ago blog. And then I quit doing that, but then maybe 10 years ago I started another one and I wrote a few articles. And I did post some, but not a lot because I just didn't have the energy or the focus to do it. Like I just couldn't put the time into it. But I did write a few that I didn't post that were really meaningful to me. And then I didn't want to pay to host. Well, a friend of mine was hosting it and I was like, can you help me download my blog so that I don't lose it? And so, but then years went by. And then I contacted him last year and I said, hey, I know we never got together and I want to make sure I don't lose my blog, those articles that I'm thinking of. And he's like, oh, I already canceled my sites and I downloaded that onto a thumb drive and I lost it. And like he hadn't told me because he was like, I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna have it for her. And I was like, oh my gosh. I want to cry just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's rough.
And I was like, it's fine. Like, I don't want you to feel bad about it. And I just have a feeling it'll turn up. Like it's somewhere. Obviously it's somewhere. It's on a thumb drive somewhere in this world and it'll turn up. So I was like, yeah, just don't worry about it.
Could you replicate any of those, like the topics? Could you sit down and write it again? And maybe you're better at it now because it's years later.
There was one in particular that I remember, and I could sit and try to. I mean, I couldn't replicate the article, but I could just write about that situation, you know. And anyway, so I don't know how much time. Like a year has gone by, or maybe a little less, and I was doing some work. I started a new blog and I was doing some work on that and I was looking up a file and up comes this file with the name of my old blog. And I click on it, I downloaded it, I uploaded it to my blog and it was my old blog. I, without remembering, had made a backup of it.
Oh.
And I have it now. Isn't that crazy?
That's nice.
So I texted him, I'm like,
see,
hey,
you fired, you took some action, and then something happened.
Yeah, like I didn't even know, like I don't know what I was, like I'm telling you, those years were I was just really out of it.
Right.
I didn't know what was happening. I was just doing the best I could. And apparently I had made a backup, thank heavens.
That's cool.
But I don't doubt he's going to find that thumb drive.
Yeah, well, let's hope.
I think he still will.
Well, and that goes back to your very first question, like what is focus and why can't we do it sometimes? Well, you just weren't physically able.
Yeah, I was.
So if you can resolve that and then just move forward, then there's no reason to look backward. Say, well, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. No, well, you couldn't have. So just forget that. The past is dead.
That's
the future is our imagination. The present is the only thing we can do anything about.
Right. And yeah, I think you're right to emphasize that, like so right, because we get stuck in the past, we get stuck worrying about the future, and then we just don't. We're paralyzed. And I really think, like, I'm going to be really honest here. When I say, oh, I was really sick all those years and I didn't have the resources, if I'm super honest, I probably was just paralyzed with doubt and fears and trying to thinking it needed to be more than it did, and like just not firing, not turning, like putting the phone in my face and taking a video and posting it.
Yeah.
It really does come down to that, doesn't it?
True.
Because like we all have a million excuses. There's always a million excuses.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing too about what I said earlier about we're all different and we all have different skills and abilities. Like not everyone's Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Mark Cuban. Those people are unusual because there's not a ton of them.
No. If there were.
But if we're comparing ourselves to them, then yeah, we're a failure. If we're comparing ourselves to where we were 5 years ago because we were sick, well, we're way better than we were, right? It's all about perspective.
Yeah, and I do want to say that it's okay if you never, if I never start a YouTube channel, if I never post this,
sure,
and I die.
You're still a coach,
totally
you're still a
fine.
mom, you're still happy-ish. I mean, we're all happy-ish.
But even if none of those things, what I'm saying is even if none of those things, even if I'm not happy, even if I just suffer my whole life and die, that's fine too.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's your authentic self.
That's what I'm learning.
Yeah.
That's what I'm learning, because I used to have all these expectations, like, no, my life needs to be a certain way. No, it doesn't.
Right.
My life is totally fine exactly the way it is.
Sure, because you are exactly the way you are.
Yes.
And your life is exactly the way it is because exactly the way you are.
And the ironic thing is because once I realized that, things all of a sudden started getting easier. And the way started opening. And now I'm here today, like living my dream life. And I'm out of that cycle of thinking about the past, worried about the future, thinking about the past, and then I'm actually doing all the things that I've always wanted to do.
That's the easiest way to be happy, is to understand your authentic self.
Yeah, to be where you're at right now.
Right, because we're all imperfect, and we're all good at certain things, we're all not good. Like my brother again, for years beating his head against the wall. Well, how come I can't do this? How come this isn't happening? And eventually I just started saying, you know what? Because you're not like that. You can't do it. You can't make it happen the way you're talking about. So just accept it and get on with life.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's the best advice. Because it frees you up.
It totally does. That's all you need. It
totally frees people up.
Like people, now there's limits. Like you don't want to go around killing people. You don't want to start stealing things.
Maybe, yeah.
But, right, but if you have a temper and you yell at people, well, you're a yeller. Maybe you just need to hang around with other yellers.
Well, you didn't like me saying it's okay to steal.
You think it's okay to steal?
Some people are in a place where that's the best they can do.
Well, they need to fix what they're doing.
Well, what if you really are broke and your family needs food and you go to Walmart and you steal some food? It's Les Mis. It's the Les Mis story.
That goes back to what I was talking about. Like before we chose to raise kids, like what are the things we want to focus on? If it's okay to steal in certain situations, it's okay to. This is a whole new podcast, but we could do this one. What are your principles, right? What do you believe in? It's not you, but this person who thinks they need to steal from Walmart. Okay, in this day and age, with all the bleeding hearts and all the government programs that are out there, you can't go online for free at your. Yes, you can.
But what if it's right now and I need food right now?
Then you've put yourself in that situation, and don't ever do that again.
Maybe.
What do you mean maybe? Who else is going to do it to you?
I'm just saying, if I'm in that situation, it might not take me one day to get out of that situation.
Oh, it might not.
It might take me a month or a year or 10 years.
Agreed, but you put yourself in that situation.
From Walmart or wherever.
Not cool.
No, it's not. It's not cool, but.
And it's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
I don't think so. Now, different people have different morality. Some people think it's okay to steal. Some people think it's okay to kill. Look at our society. This is a whole different podcast.
I'm not saying this is okay, but I'm also not saying that.
Well, you're saying to them it's okay. Or they need to.
No, I'm not saying any of that. But what I'm saying is it's also not okay for our society to be the way it is, like that. It's like he says in Les Mis, that we create We created the thief and then we punished it. And our society is creating people who have no other options than to steal, or no other options than to sell drugs, or they've come to a place where they feel there's no other option.
We need to do a different podcast on this.
Okay.
We could go on.
This will be our next podcast.
We could go on.
You have a lot to say, I can tell.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure we can go a lot of places with it. And I think it's interesting. I think it's
really interesting.
we're talking about society. We're talking about how we treat each other. We're talking about government. We're talking about culture. We're talking about 2024 versus 1950. I mean, there's all kinds of places. And of course, morality. I love talking about that.
This is should we talk about this? This should be our topic for our next discussion group.
Oh,
the outdoor discussion
group.
The
stealing thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do that. That's a really good idea.
Oh, I can't wait for that one. Because there's some people that are going to hate what I'm going to say.
I've never found that. I always
well, not with you. You're an open mind, but some of the people that and this is
But our discussion group is very open-minded.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll love you no matter what. No. But you're what makes it interesting. If you're not there, it's just not the same.
Good.
Okay. Well.
Anything else on focus?
Let's wrap this up.
I have one more thing, unless you do.
Well, we could both.
We could both have one more thing. I did want to say, for the people out there who do want to focus, but they're just not, like the willpower's not doing it, or the habits aren't quite there. Here's things that have worked for me. They may not work for everybody, but they've worked for me. Lists are very helpful. I like Post-its. I like writing things down. It's very organic. I think when you write something down physically, you make yourself a little more connected, maybe a little more accountable. So even if it's just 2 or 3 things, I'll write it on a Post-it note as soon as I think about it. And then I pick up the Post-it note and I put it on my bathroom counter, because at some point the next morning, I'm going to brush my teeth, or I'm going to put my contacts in, or I'm going to take a shower and comb my hair. So on the bathroom counter, boom, there's my yellow Post-it, and I get right on it, and usually by lunch I've got everything done.
Yeah. If
people don't like Post-its, of course we've got our phones, we have the calendars, and sometimes I do that, but my calendar alerts are easy to ignore. So if I have calendar alerts, it's usually not very effective. And the third and final way, and these are in no particular order, my Post-its are my favorite, is a Franklin planner. So a Franklin planner, again, you're writing things down, and the Franklin planner is a system. There's a certain way you do things in the Franklin planner. I've been using it for 30 years, and they're fantastic. So anyway, for me, like, you got the focus, you got the desire, but you just can't take the next step. Just write it down. And write down small things.
Right, the smaller the better.
Right, because then you feel accomplished, and you feel like you're moving forward. You're inching forward. So there you have it.
I love it. Yeah, that's very good advice. I'll share one, I'll add to that. And that is that's kind of in regards to taking small steps, and like take a smaller step. Like always ask yourself, how could this be easier? How could I just make this easy? That's the most important question. And one way I do that is I think in my mind, like let's say I plan a time, like I was teaching my kids music, like how to play the violin, for example. And I go, I'm gonna, we're gonna work on music from 10 to 11. And 10 o'clock would come, and I'd be like, well, this person's needs a new string, or I wanted to look up this music, or I needed to print this out, or whatever. And then I would like kind of beat myself up a little bit, like, oh, another day we didn't do our music. And then I would like spend that hour doing something different. And so then I finally learned, like, I'll just spend this hour doing music no matter what it looks like. It could be me online, Googling, buying something from Amazon. It could be me driving to the store to repairing somebody's violin. It could be, we could be listening to music while we make lunch. It could be literally anything that has to do with music. It's like, break it down so you're down to the basics. Like, what do I really want here out of this hour? Music. I don't care what it is. And then whatever steps I can take, then I'm going to take. And then days and weeks and years don't go by, and you go, I never had time to do music with my kids because I was never organized enough. I couldn't figure it out. And so I think just setting aside that time and just like cherishing it, like worshiping it, like it's a devotion, and then And then gradually you get there.
Right. Gradually you get all the strings taken care of and you buy all the music, and then eventually you're playing music.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do in the first place.
Well, you know, and I have been taking small, like I was like, oh, we're recording this today. Well, I had a tripod. I bought this tripod, I don't know how many years ago, so that I could record videos. One time I bought these mics. I have these mics. I bought some lights. And, you know, what else have I bought? So many things. I've figured out how to edit. I've made like little Instagram reels to like learn how to edit videos. And I've made so much progress.
Cool.
Toward my podcast, toward my YouTube channel.
Right. So today's not the start. Today's just one step.
Today was just the next step.
The next step.
And I didn't want to do this today.
Yeah.
Like a part of me did. But then there was a part of me that was like, oh, you're too tired and you this and you that and you're not ready and blah, blah, blah. I had all the reasons.
And now we're done.
And I just was like, I don't care about the reasons. We're just going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Kurt's going to come. And then it will be like...
Then you'll have to do it.
I jumped off the cliff and it's happening. There's no going back.
Yep.
I knew once you got in your car and you started heading this way, there's no going back.
I knew that since you weren't texting me this morning, telling me other things were happening, I was like, yeah, we're doing it.
I literally was like, I'll just tell him just to like hold off a little bit. Like come an hour later. Right. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. We're doing it now.
See? And see how easy it was?
Yeah. So what's the next step?
For this
For
podcast?
this podcast.
Well, you're going to have to look at it and decide if you want to post the whole thing start to finish or edit it or whatever.
So yeah, so I'm going to have to...
And that's up to you because it's your channel.
I'm going to have to watch it.
Yeah. Or get someone else to watch it.
Yeah. Okay.
And hope they care as much as you do.
No, I don't.
But I think our next podcast should be, when's it okay to steal?
Okay. I'm really excited.
Oh, me too.
I'm going to be ready for like just a fire hose.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Okay. I can't wait. Okay, well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for helping me off this cliff.
Of course. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, we'll do it again.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was fun.
That was really fun.
I wasn't really thinking about the camera either. Were you?
Maybe more than you. I was more worried about it recording.
I was kind of worried.
I think so. I mean, I was going to say I don't really listen to them anymore, but I actually do listen to YouTube videos. I don't listen to a lot of interview style podcasts.
A lot of monologue stuff.
Yeah, mostly I just
presentations.
mostly I just listen to monologues. Those seem more interesting.
I'm the opposite. I like the dialogue. I like the two people going at it. And I don't listen to podcasts either. I have the app, but I've never listened to any.
What do you mean?
I've never heard a podcast. Well, I say I've never heard a podcast. I watch YouTube.
Oh, so you're listening to them from YouTube.
I like the one-on-one discussions.
Yeah. So what's your favorite that you're listening to right now?
My favorite might be Jesse Lee Peterson. I think he's a great YouTuber. He's got a couple different channels. One of them's called The Fallen State. That's probably my favorite one. And then he's got another one where he just films himself recording his podcast. But The Fallen State is an interview style. He has guests and they talk and sometimes they argue and sometimes they agree. But it's interesting. He's got some really interesting points of view that I've never heard before. I like Bill Maher also. He's probably my second favorite. So Club Random. Bill Maher's the guy that does Politically Incorrect. Well, he did Politically Incorrect. His new I can't remember the name of his new show. But it's the same style. So he'll have various guests. And they talk about random things, literally. It's called Club Random.
So this is reminding me, I think the reason I stopped listening to those styles was because I realized all the people I was listening to were interviewing all the same guests. So, I would find someone I really liked and I would listen to all of their, every single episode, and then they had the same guests as this, the same guests were like making the rounds on all the things, and I was like, why don't I just go listen to the guest? So then I'd go find their channel, and then I would just listen to their monologues and go like, instead of them like parodying all this information, the same thing,
on different shows,
on different channels.
Well, you and I need to get into this pipeline. I mean, we need to be guests on all these shows.
Yeah.
Let's make that work somehow.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes it different is like if each guest has a different focus, and so they hit it at a different angle.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the thing that's interesting for me, and I think the thing that got me kind of interested in the podcast thing, because I'm actually pretty introverted. I kind of don't like putting myself out there that much, but I love conversations. And in the past, so there's old and new media. Old media is all the media that was before the internet. New media is all the stuff after. So podcasts, blogs, emails, video chat, that's all new media. So most of new media up until very recently has been really one-sided. So the guests on there, it's kind of like the echo chamber, right? But what changed it for me, anyway, that's the background. My point is, what changed it for me, have you heard of Trevor Noah? Okay, he did, I don't think he does it anymore, a show called The Daily Show. And I don't know if it was nightly or if it was once a week, but it was kind of a parody. It was kind of like when Saturday Night Live did the news as part of their shtick. But Trevor Noah was like the anchor. And he would talk about politics, he would talk about current events, and it was very left-leaning. And his guests were all very left-leaning. And he had Tommy Lahren on, who's very right-leaning. And I thought, well, this is going to be kind of interesting. Because usually the guests are just all
agreeing with
them, right? Which is fine. I mean, that, you get two opinions from the same mouth, so to speak. Like, okay, he's going to have somebody different on. And he wasn't very nice to her. He kind of picked on her a little bit. And he was like, yeah. And it was a live audience, so they were cackling at her, which wasn't cool. Couple weeks later, he had a Republican senator on. And now it's COVID, and there's no live audience. And it's just Trevor Noah and this senator, and I can't remember who it was. But anyway, they're in a studio, and they're at a table. And Trevor Noah is the most respectful, curious, great interviewer, asks a question, waits for an answer, they go back and forth, but there's no fighting. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. This is where you can get different opinions, you can get different ideas. This is true diversity, right? And Bill Maher's like that too. He'll have people that don't agree with him on his show, and they usually don't fight. Every once in a while they bicker a little bit. But anyway, the big long story is, I guess that's what I like, is hearing different conversations and different points of view in a respectful manner. I guess I could have just said that 5 minutes ago.
No, it's good to get the background, because then, it helps see like how you got to that conclusion and why it's so valuable. Because you're right. And maybe that was the thing I didn't like about the interview style, was that everyone was just agreeing with each other and they're just saying the same things over and over. And that's not interesting to me. So finding people who, and it seems like people that are just doing monologues, they'll go deeper in it by themselves. Like they're not trying to please an interviewer or agree with them. They're just saying it like it is, because that seems more authentic to me. And
they probably have something prepared, so they've got all their bullet points they want to make sure they hit. Whereas if you're just winging it, you might stop the broadcast and you're like, oh, I forgot to say this and this.
Yeah.
So the monologue definitely is effective and powerful.